All right, ladies and germs, welcome back. Episode 82 of the Change My Mind podcast, part of the hashtag Dorkshared Gooniverse, along with Geeks Worldwide Radio and Midnight.fm. We are, of course, the People's Podcast. We are also the prettiest podcast of the hashtag Dorkshared Gooniverse. And starting today, this week's episode only, we are officially brought to you by Campbell's Soup, the chunkiest soup there is. Of course, Donovan McNabb's mama, always is serving that up for hot and warm for the Philadelphia Eagles. So get your hands on some Campbell's Soup while supplies still last, and type in promo code Change My Mind at your checkout for 10% off. I am, of course, Wesley Sykes, and through the other side of the ether is the inception to my inversion, Mr. Nick Fryer. Nick, what is good in the hood?
Dude, you came out so hot today. Yeah, threw me off with the ladies and germs or whatever that was. But
yeah, ladies and germs.
I like the what? I'm all about that chunk, so I'm feeling that. Thanks,
are you a chunky Campbell's Soup guy?
Oh, I'm just chunky in general. I prefer chunky in general. I'm not chunky myself, but I prefer as much chunk as possible. If you know what I mean.
You got to be careful with chunky because he'll just eat up all your points. Eat up all your points. I haven't figured out what his deal is, but he'll eat them all up.
I wasn't thinking of that.
There we go. That's I think you should leave a little reference there for you, Nick. But before we get into some trending now and what we'll be discussing this week, do you have any good palindromes that come to mind?
Race car.
Race car. That's the first one?
Yes, race car.
So not your mom's, not your dad's, none of those things, none of your Bob's.
No, race car was the first one I learned, actually, believe it or not. I had no idea what a palindrome was until then. And as mom, dad, yeah. Race car, I think, is just as generic and as boring as mom and dad. That's why I went with it.
How about level? Level's a good one.
Level is a great one. I didn't know that. I wouldn't pick these things out. I'm not good like that.
How about a man, a plan, a canal, Panama?
A man, a plan, a canal. What?
A man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
Okay, didn't know that.
That's also a palindrome.
I'm not gonna question you.
Do you want to know what that says backwards?
The same thing you just said?
There we go. Now we got it. And the reason why I ask you that, because the movie that we'll be discussing today, that we both officially broke quarantine for. I know there's been some slanderous terms out there saying that I have risked my life to go see New Mutants. That is not true. I may have risked legal fees, but not my life. But this one I did break quarantine for, and of course we'll be discussing Christopher Nolan's latest featured film, Tenet, which is also a palindrome, which is also a play on words because things go forwards and backwards in this movie. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
We'll try to, at least.
We'll try. Yes, exactly. But first, what do you say, Nick? You want to trend?
Yeah, sure. So we got a little bit of news out of the worlds of DC, DCEU, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah.
Zachary Levi is saying that Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which is the second Shazam movie, is going to start filming early next year. We did not get a specific date. We just got early next year, which is a nice bit of news given what else has gone on in the worlds of DC this week, I would say, Wes.
Yeah, and absolutely. But just real quick on the Shazam thing. So I wonder how this is going to play out. Are we going to get Black Adam before Shazam 2? Do you think is that how the timeline works out?
I don't think so. Unless I don't. There's been no word of Black Adam starting filming, right?
Oh, but we got the teaser, so that was kind of in the forefront of my mind from DC fandom. So maybe they introduce Black Adam in this movie as the villain, and then he gets his own origin story where he's kind of like not as villainous as we once thought.
That could work out. They gotta make him kind of villainous though. He's not a good dude. He's not.
Black Adam?
Yeah, he creates problems. He's not like, I don't expect him. I haven't read a ton of Shazam or Black Adam, but from everything I understand, he's not like the Punisher who like people see kind of as a good guy, but then the heroes that he fights alongside or parallel to, they don't like him. I'm pretty sure he's more like
Magneto.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
More evil than good, but can be good when the causes
I don't know.
justify him, can help him.
Yeah, but I don't know how much you're going to see him teaming up with the likes of Superman or somebody like that.
What? And my question is, like, The Rock is not really a villainous person. We saw him go corporate in the WWF, Attitude Era, the corporate Rock, and that didn't really like that whole storyline didn't really play out well for me. I wasn't a big fan of that.
Yeah, it broke my heart too.
Yeah, so like, other than that, I can't really think of, like, even in the Hobbs and Shaw, like Fast and the Furious movies, which again I haven't watched. It could be off base here. He's a cop who's supposed to be a bad guy. Like, he's a good guy, but from the perspective of the antagonist, he's a bad guy because the main characters are bad guys, right?
But he was he had that in the Fast and Furious movies where he was more like, now he's kind of a good guy, it seems like, but again, he's sided with the bad guys.
But you didn't necessarily know. Yeah, exactly. And then this, like, The Rock.
But he used to be a straight up good guy, but on the opposite side of.
Right.
You know what? Honest to God, the way we're talking about this right now is still less confusing than Tenet.
Yeah, because I think we know what we're saying. It's just not saying it well. Like, when we actually go to describe Tenet, like, I'm not sure if we really know what we're going to be saying.
Yeah,
a lot of physics involved.
And just so everybody knows, we will be, just like with New Mutants, doing spoiler-free to start, because we know a lot of you are not able to go out to the theaters and see the movie, and you may not want to hear those spoilers. Unlike Wes, who loves to hear the spoilers first.
Yes. Yeah, and before moving forward, I just have to make a comment on your outfit here. I know a lot of listeners might not enjoy this, but you look like a certain Steve Robinson. Are you familiar with who that is?
Steve Robinson?
Yes.
Wow. That's Tim Robinson, who I'm thinking of, right?
No. So I'm thinking of the producer of the Kirk Minahan show.
Oh, okay. All right.
You kind of have that vibe going on right now.
All right.
Now, do you care to explain to the people at home who may not be watching us?
Well, I mean, no one who's ever watched this show has ever seen me wear glasses. You've never seen me wear glasses. I hardly ever wear these.
I think I've seen you wear them once or twice.
Maybe, but I
only after coitus, post coitus.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, it's just the tenor of this movie is very much business. You see, Denzel. What is Denzel Washington Jr.? What is Denzel Washington? John David Washington. Thank you. We see his character constantly dressed up. Of course, Robert Pattinson's characters, like, they're all very professional in this. And honest to God, Wes, I feel like I have to this is fun. Don't get me wrong. I always enjoy when we do these things, but we got to get down to business with this shit, because it is confusing, this movie.
We're going to be mixing a lot of hypotheses, a lot of hypotenuses. We're going to be finding the square roots of certain things here. There's a lot of confusion stuff going on. So I appreciate somebody at least looking the part, because we certainly won't sound it.
Right.
Yeah, now, you mentioned some good news for the DC Worlds of DC here. This is some possibly troubling news.
Yeah.
Shooting has shut down on the set of The Batman, Matt Reeves' The Batman, after Robert Pattinson himself gets COVID-19.
Yeah, never a good thing. He's got COVID-19. The Rock has COVID-19, and The Rock's family has it too. The DCEU is as much as you got the Shazam news, they're just taking hits left and right with their new big actors.
Yeah, this one was tough. I actually found this kind of humorous. Obviously not because I wish the health and safety of everybody involved, including Robert Pattinson, in this movie, who was affected by it. But I felt like this was, a big conspiracy theory person. Even if just on a conversational level, not on the institutional level, foundational level. Of course, coronavirus starts with the theory or the rumor or the thought that it came from a bat. And Robert Pattinson gets coronavirus while playing the role of the Batman. I think this is like the simulation winking at us.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess that kind of like, that's like almost too perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
I know
like
about
that
6 months have got, like, so much has gone on in these last 6 months that we've been in quarantine dealing with coronavirus, but like, you forget, like, the early rumors, I guess, maybe for lack of a better term, was that it started from a bat in Wuhan. And so now I feel like we're coming full circle, and now it's like, yeah, this is the simulation winking at us. Like, it's all a trick. Like,
maybe it's a turning point in all this. Maybe
it could
now.
Be. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
but what
now.
I will say on The Rock, or if you want to finish your thought.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if I believe The Rock.
You don't necessarily. You think he's making it up that he has COVID-19?
No, like
What's the Stay Woke of the Week is back, everybody. Come on, tell me.
Stay woke of the week. This is kind of a stay woke of the week here. So, The
It's
Rock
been a
just
while.
comes out of nowhere, right? It's seemingly he's in quarantine. Like I'm assuming all short. Like he's at his home with his family. Like they're probably out doing things, but I'm sure he's not out working and like filming anything right now. And again, this is just my opinion. But out of nowhere, he just kind of comes and says, "Hey guys, I have coronavirus. My family has coronavirus. We're cool, but wear a mask, do your thing, do the PSA stuff," right? It just almost seems like at a time where we're not really discussing coronavirus anymore. It's not really in the forefront of the news. He comes out as a reminder to be like, "Hey guys, I can get it. I'm America's strongest person. I'm probably the most credible person in America." This is kind of like what happened with Tom Hanks when he first got coronavirus and him and Rita Wilson. When it first came out, it's like, "Hey, take this seriously. I have the most credibility of anybody in America. Believe me, if not anybody else. If I can get it, anyone can get it." And I feel like that's kind of similar.
Maybe.
Which is disappointing to me because I think The Rock is a man of his own,
I mean,
does the things that he wants to sing, sings the songs that he wants to sing.
I mean, it's like that's when I say maybe, that's a huge maybe, Wes.
I mean, listen, who knows? I was also the same person on this show, maybe like the second week in March to be like, open up the show, welcome back to episode blah blah blah. I've changed my mind. I don't think coronavirus is a big deal. Do you, Nick? Yeah. And that was like the opening question. So, clearly my takes on this are tepid at best.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? I appreciate you always putting your neck out on the line like that.
Hey,
someone's got to do it.
Like a giraffe, baby. I'm sticking it out. Or like an ostrich. I don't know. We know Rossi loves.
Oh my God, ostrich. The whole ostrich thing is. He. By the way, they gave you, or maybe it was Dork that gave incorrect credit. You're the one that said that you'd want to be a hawk.
Yes,
I would want to be a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what everybody else would want to be, but Rossi thinking that being an ostrich is a good thing, I think just speaks to Rossi and who he is as a person. Not just that not that he could pass off as a animal that wants to bury its head underground all the time, but that he thinks that that's cool. I mean, when you talk about the takes that he has, and I know Dork has this whole thing, and they're doing a great job with the great little promo thing that Billy D created for them. But that's just Rossi in a nutshell. And I kind of feel, I don't know if I'm going to make fun of him anymore. I'm starting to feel bad about it, Wes.
I'm just worried. I think we should have like a talk with him, maybe like an intervention of sorts. So just make sure he's okay.
Well, with PCP this month, they're doing their sweeps, and last week they had Shime and Goo do it for their Disney draft. And who did you did you vote on that?
I did. I voted for Shime.
I voted for Shime as well. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I am.
And he's got so much charisma too. Like I feel like he's a snake oil salesman at heart. Like you could sell me that stuff, and I'd be like, you know what? He's right. He's got a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
He's got so much charm.
And we're going to be featured in some episodes coming up. One of us will be on PCP this week, or supposed to be at least, schedule permitting. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But one last bit of news before the comic book minute. No Time to Die, the final James Bond Daniel Craig movie, is the trailer, or is it the first trailer, or is it the latest trailer? First one, right?
I believe it's the official one.
It's the official one. Okay, because
there might have been a teaser trailer, but
that's
this is
what
like
it was.
The trailer.
So, what did you think of this? Are we going to review it? Do you want to see it?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the most recent Daniel Craig films here. I love them. Quantum of Solace, I believe, just hit Netflix now, so that's up there for you to watch. And the other one that I'm blanking on with what's his name? Skyfall. Thank you. Yes. I thought that was fantastic because you got Dave Bautista in there, and plus you got Christoph Waltz in there as well, which I thought he's such a great villain. So I really enjoyed those movies. They tend to be a little bit long, a little bit too, take themselves a little bit too seriously. But I will definitely see this movie. I've been looking forward to this much more than any James Bond film I had in some recent time.
This one, actually, Skyfall had Javier Bardem in it. Which one was...
Oh,
that's
Casino Royale.
Casino Royale may be the one that had
Quantum Solace, or maybe that's it.
Well, I'll tell you this:
3 of them.
I have only seen one James Bond movie from start to finish, and it is Skyfall.
Really?
And that's why when you said Waltz, I was a little apprehensive there because I remember Javier Bardem, but I just couldn't remember his name. But I got to go back and watch all the Daniel Craig ones. I got to go back and watch all the other ones. I wasn't raised in a household that watched, my dad didn't watch a ton of James Bond. I think he liked them, but that just wasn't his thing, I guess, necessarily. So I didn't see that. Instead, I watched Lord of the Rings 15,000 times. But
Wow, yeah, and
I did
yeah.
enjoy Skyfall. I would like to see this one, and I should go watch the other Daniel Craig one. So if we're gonna end up reviewing this, which I could see us doing that, I will make sure to see the other Daniel Craig movies, Daniel Craig James Bond movies before. This one looks awesome.
So I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I obviously fell in love with it through GoldenEye, much like many other people my age. And I thought Mac brought up a great point. I think it was on the news dump. The PS2 game Nightfall was also very good. I remember that game. That jogged my memory a little bit when he brought that up. But again, like those Pierce Brosnan movies, like I'm not a huge James Bond fan, but I always watched them. It wasn't like a rush out to the theater to go see them. But I always watch them, whether they're on TV or come back and just kind of rent them, that sort of thing. So I'm very interested to see how this one plays out. And I'm also I want to see who the next James Bond is. What route they go.
I think they teased it in the trailer.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Who do you think?
I think it's the new 00 that the female that comes in.
Okay.
I think it's going to be her.
Oh, you think so? Right.
I think they're going to finally step away from 007. It'll still be that world, but whatever number she is.
005.
Yeah. Whatever it is, that's who's going to be the next James Bond, I think.
Okay. All right. If you say so.
I don't hate it. Try something different. Why not?
Yeah,
I mean, you've had what was it? It was Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, Sean Connery, and was there another one?
Yeah, there's Roger Morris or Roger Moore. I was confusing Roger Maris and Roger Moore there. And Timothy Dalton, I believe, was also one. I think we got them all. I think we got all the
James Bond has been around for a while. 007 has been around for a while. Bring in 005 or 009 or whatever. I don't care. Double nickel if you want to mix it up a little bit.
Oh, double nickel.
Yeah.
How about a nice 00 for Robert Parrish, huh?
Ooh, I wouldn't hate that. Yeah, 00. Just do that.
I like it.
Why not? Mm-hmm. All right. That brings us to actually before we talk about the comic book minute, just a reminder for everybody: we have a bunch of merch on TeePublic. I think they're doing a site-wide sale this entire Labor Day weekend. I know I saw it on Saturday, the day before we're recording the show, so it may still be there, it may not, but always keep your eyes peeled. If you're following us on Twitter at ChangeMyMindPod, I'm trying to make sure that we tweet that out every single time that a sale goes live, so that way you can get our stuff, Mac and Goo, and Dork. No PCP stuff yet, no TLDR stuff yet. I don't think TLDR is there yet. We've only done 5 episodes, but
good numbers. You got good turnout for those first 5 episodes. A lot of people loving it so far. Not me, a lot of other people though.
Right, of course. You only named the show and told us how it's important to you, but you don't like it now. But I think the important thing for you is I actually keep the comic book minute more or less to a minute, and I'm going to try and do that now. DC this week, Nightwing 74. Nightwing has taken a huge turn in that story. It had been frustrating for a while, much like Red Hood, but for a different reason. And I like where it's headed now. A couple issues ago, it started to take this turn where Joker is getting involved. And look, I know there can be a lot of Joker, but it was a good move. If you guys want to know exactly where to hop on, check out Geeks Worldwide, where I've been reviewing this. I'll have a review this week for it too. Haven't read that yet, but I will be. Same with Death Metal Trinity Crisis 1. This is another one-off in Scott Snyder's world with the ongoing Death Metal event. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Also, I've talked a lot about Constantine lately, and the run right now that's being written by Cy Spurrier is limited to 12 issues. The first trade, I imagine there's going to be 2. The first trade is coming out this week. It's called John Constantine Hellblazer, Marks of Woe. I've read all these issues. You get about 200 pages. I think it's like 6 issues in this. I've enjoyed it. If you want, reviews to get an idea, again, all on Geeks Worldwide. I do spoiler-free for, I think, all of those. I try to do that all the time with reviews, give a little spoiler-free and then some spoilers because, you get a mix of people going in. Marvel.
Question real quick on John Constantine, if you will.
Absolutely.
So John Constantine, Hellblazer, Marks of Woe, is this starring Joey Lawrence?
That is a joke that is over my head. I have no idea what you're going.
Lawrence, like, whoa.
No, I don't get it at all.
You don't know who Joey Lawrence is? Maybe you've never seen the show Blossom, the sitcom Blossom. No,
I've never heard of that show. Joey, I mean, I'm looking at Joey Lawrence right now. I have no idea who this is.
It's a fucking meme. You could meme whoa, and Joey Lawrence is gonna pop up in there. But I'm very disappointed once again.
Never.
Your lack of pop culture knowledge hurt me, so I'm blaming you for that failed joke and then the interruption of your comic book minute. So please continue.
I will not lose any sleep over that. Marvel this week, they have a first issue, Web of Venom, Wraith. And Wraith is a pretty badass character from everything I can see, at least on appearance. Venom readers seem to be excited about it. I haven't been reading this. I don't read Venom really. But one thing I do know about Wraith is that he has been trying to, since he first appeared in the Marvel Universe, which was in the past year, I don't know how recently, he is trying to hunt down the god of the symbiotes. So obviously, he's packing some serious heat. IDW has TMNT 109 out this week. Boom Studios has Buffy the Vampire Slayer Willow issue 3. Again, for our female listeners, because we do have some, Wes has informed me of that. If you're looking for something to read, that's been out there. If you
18%.
Yep, there you go.
We are 18% split according to Anchor.fm. We are trying to corner that 1% non-binary market. We have to do a much better job of that. That's coming in the near future. To you,
nice. I'm excited to hear the plans for that because I have no idea what you're thinking. Dark Horse, I know I don't normally talk about them much, but they have Cyberpunk 2077 : Trauma Team issue 1 is out this week, and then Bill and Ted Are Doomed issue 1 is out this week.
Oh.
Doc and I will be doing TLDR on time, unlike last week where we did it the stream a little bit early. That was the Celtics' fault, but this time we should be good. Doc is talking about an indie book. I do not know what I'm talking about yet. I always wait till we get a little bit closer. But that concludes our comic book minute, Wes. Are you ready for the main item today?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. I'm not sure if my brain is. Now, all cards on the table. I have played an afternoon round of golf with my father-in-law, where many Coors Lattes were drunk, and we had a little bit of dinner as well, where some more drinks were consumed. So again,
Coors Lattes?
Some Coors Lattes there. Normally, lattes are reserved for the Miller variety, but I think with Coors Lattes, these work as well. The Silver Bullet. I'm getting distracted right now because Nick is taking off his tie and loosening up his top buckle on his shirt, top button, I should say, not his top buckle. That's maybe a little bit later in the show. I was getting ahead of myself, putting the cart before the horse there.
Wow. Yeah. No, we're not going there yet. We're in spoiler free, so that will happen a little bit later on.
Little steamy in here. I had to catch my breath here. Let's get back on topic to the main topic of focus, which is 2020's best movie to date, possibly Tenet. You want to give us the synopsis, the spoiler-free synopsis, Nick?
Armed with only one word, Tenet, in fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Who directed this, Wes?
It's directed by Christopher Nolan, who's made such films as Inception, the Bale Batman movies, The Prestige, Memento, Dunkirk, etc. And it's starring John David Washington, who plays the role of the protagonist, Robert Pattinson, who plays Neil, Elizabeth Debicki, who plays Kat, Kenneth Branagh, who plays Andre Sador, which is very interesting because I had never seen a picture of Kenneth Branagh before. All I know is that I've stumbled over his names numerous times on this podcast and know he's big into Shakespeare with directing Thor and whatnot. And he comes off completely redeems himself in my book. Doesn't come off like a theater Shakespearean, so to speak. But that's just my thought.
It's Sir Kenneth Branagh.
Yes, excuse me. And rounding out the main actors on the list is Aaron Taylor Johnson, who of course plays Ives. That was a surprise for me. I saw it at one point and because he's got a beard in this. And yeah,
wait a minute.
I wasn't sure if that was him or not. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. And honestly, if he was aware of the world that they have, the what's going on in Tenet, all the inversion crap and whatever, maybe Quicksilver lives. I think we know this is not in the MCU.
Oh, wow. This is post-MCU.
Or it's separate from MCU, I think is what is. That's how I feel. Do you think it's post?
It could be post.
Huh. So I don't I see it as just, it's not in this world.
It's
There's
in a
no, I don't
different
see a
universe. Okay.
connection.
All right, fine. All right, fine. I won't argue. I won't push you on that one.
Okay. So in terms of money, because we do have some money numbers, variety.
Money.
This is as of Sunday
Money.
morning, so they've done pretty well. Tenet has made $146 million internationally as of Sunday morning. Pulled in. I'm sorry, that's worldwide.
Yeah,
They
and I
pulled.
believe the movie has been released a little bit longer in Europe than it has just this past weekend domestically. Sorry.
That would make sense. It's pulled in 20 million domestically as of Sunday. Has a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb, and then again Rotten Tomato splits because some people give a shit about it. I don't. 74-80 critic audio split with a critic consensus of a visually dazzling puzzle for film lovers to unlock. Tenet serves up all the cerebral spectacle audience expect from a Christopher Nolan production.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty spot on. I think that's a good description. Listen, I think that's a pretty good discussion. We'll just leave it at that. Do you want to go into our scores and our tweet length reviews?
Yes. All right. I'll give you my grade first. I have this at an 87 in my tweet length review. There was a quote from Robert Pattinson in this movie that I wanted to use, but I couldn't recall it. It came later on. And honestly, if I had it, I might have just had to save it for spoilers because I don't want to. I don't know if it would have given anything away. But my tweet length movie review, I'm a little confused by Christopher Nolan's tactics, but I'm going to keep acting tough till I figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty true. This was a quote which I feel like surmised the whole movie. I've seen this going around at a few other places, so this isn't a completely original thought. But my tweet length review is like the woman scientist says to the protagonist when explaining the inversion bullets and how they work, don't worry about understanding it and just feel it. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the best way to go about this movie. I think that's almost like a wink, wink, nudge, break of the fourth wall that she all she had to do was just look to the camera at that point and it would have broken the fourth wall completely. But that it went like right up to that fourth wall. And then like it was almost like she was speaking to the crowd, much like she was speaking to the protagonist there. I enjoyed this movie. I give it an 82 out of 100. Again, it was kind of difficult. It's somewhere between Inception, which I loved, and Interstellar, which I understood, but not really.
Okay.
If someone asked me to explain Interstellar to them, I couldn't. But if I watched the movie, I could understand what's going on. And that's kind of how, I feel about this. People say, the best, the way to know that you've mastered a concept is to be able to explain it in the simplest terms.
Right.
I can't do that with Interstellar. I'm closer to doing that with this. I can probably do that with Inception.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably how I'm thinking. Because, again, time travel movie of a different sorts.
Right.
It's not Back to Your Future. It's not Inception. It's not Interstellar.
A quick aside, just so everybody knows, Mac and Goo, who are not braving the theaters like we are, and I don't believe Dork is either. We'll get to what everybody in the Dork Shared Gooniverse is doing this week, but Mac and Goo are talking about Inception this week. So nice little pairing for you guys if you're looking for Christopher Nolan stuff. It's Christopher Nolan week in the Dork Shared Gooniverse. But I agree with you that there are some confusing points in all of this. But what I care about most is, does this kind of help out the MCU when it came to Endgame and people in Hulk is like, just throw everything about time travel, just throw it out the window. None of it matters. All that matters is what I'm telling you right here. Does this movie help Endgame?
So that's a fair question. I think what this movie probably does better is what Christopher Nolan had on, like a legit physicist. Excuse me, the same one that he had on for Interstellar. So the science is rooted in somewhat real fact.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and I was reading up on the idea of entropy and the idea of inversion, which I will try to explain to you in spoilers. I'm not sure if that's going to actually come across as well. But that was the basic, is that these things are real. The percentages of these happening are microscopic, but not zero. And I think that's the point. So the idea of something going backwards in time is conceivable, but not practical or
Right.
eligible to happen.
Right. When you're talking about your, if you could explain this movie to somebody, I don't know that I could. I think I got it by the end of it. I definitely got it enough to enjoy. I mean, I'm not giving this movie an 87 if I'm immensely confused. As much as I enjoyed multiple components of it outside of the um, the strange element that the time travel stuff brings to the table, but it is definitely not the simplest thing I've ever seen. And I also, full disclosure, I've said this before, I have not seen Inception, and I know I should have
Oh,
at this
really?
point.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
Yeah.
you should go back and watch it. I think you'll find a lot of similarities to it, at least. But and I think for 2 hours and 30 minutes, this is definitely a long movie. But with how much it demands your attention, it flies right by. I didn't feel
Yeah.
like it was a 2 hour 30-minute movie. In fact,
I
I just looked it up now, and I was surprised to see that because I thought it was closer to 2 hours, maybe under.
right.
But
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a 2.5 hour movie.
I think and just trying to explain it, there is one thing to me that kind of explains it all by the end of it, but I'm not certain because where we learn about the is that inversion? Is that what this whole thing is? It's inversion, right? That we're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
the actual like physical name is called entropy.
okay. So
But it's
when
entropy is like essentially the active inversion.
when we're first introduced to it, I'm confused by I like you look at where that is and then where we kind of get at the end and how everything is executed at the end of the movie. I get the end of the movie a little bit more, but the beginning part is where I'm still kind of not entirely sure what the hell's going on. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. And we've kind of already answered this question off to the top, but maybe just to kind of put a bow on it, did you understand this movie?
Yeah, kind of. I would say I'd say I like you said, I got it enough where I can enjoy it and for the most part get it, but I couldn't necessarily. We'll try to explain it to people and we'll see, how well everybody, what people think, what we have to say or what each other has to say. But I don't feel comfortable explaining it.
Yeah, and again, I have a feeling this is going to be kind of like a Sixth Sense. What's the other movie that I'm thinking of? Fight Club type movie where you go back and you kind of look for certain moments where pieces click together that wouldn't have clicked otherwise until you've watched it the first time, and things kind of fall into place. So I think it's going to be one of those type movies, much like The Prestige. That it had this huge twist again that you have to kind of go back and watch.
I gotta go back and watch that too.
And again, another Christopher Nolan film. But those type of things, I think those are some of the things when you talk about time travel and not really giving out the full plan or the full vantage point of the story to you at once. I think those are some staples of Christopher Nolan films, and the lack of humor is also, I think, a big staple of Christopher Nolan films. But do you get why Nolan insisted on this movie being a theater movie?
1,000%. This is absolutely. If you guys care about this movie, and this is personally, Wes was the one that wanted to review this originally, and as time went along, and it seemed like other people aren't going to see it so much. Well, why not? Let's go see it. I'm dying to get back to the theaters and everything. I 100% agree. Nolan was right. You need to see this in theaters to fully enjoy it, like the first time at least. You got to.
Yes, and I believe a big reason. One, I mean, I think it's great because the action scenes are up there, and a lot of the cool special effects are great to see in there. But it's the sound. I think it's the Dolby sound system, the score.
Agree with you 1,000%.
Ludwig Göransson. I'm probably butchering that name, but he composed the score in this film, and even just the sounds of it. That kind of like foghorn that you hear in the teasers, that bonk sort of thing.
They do an excellent job with the music in this, and we can touch on that in spoilers because it is kind of spoiler.
Well, yeah, and I was just gonna say, just to kind of like explain it in a non-spoiler way, is that any time where they're talking, there is this music that's playing that just kind of raises the tension. And it's that music that makes an otherwise dull scene very tense and leaves you into it. And it's that music. So like that's a major component. That was sometimes it can kind of subliminally, affect you throughout the course of the movie. But this was at the forefront of my attention every time the music was playing. At least I was aware for it. Maybe that's just kind of how we approach movies now that we do this sort of thing. but again, that's something that jumped out to me. Definitely
Right.
the score. So I think, and having that great sound system, if you have a Sonos, a surround sound type thing at your home, maybe that works out well for you. But in the theater, it was definitely justice served.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that. Now, before we I know we're getting close to spoilers. I know last time we did the 7 Deadly Sins of Cinema as your idea, but we
Yes.
talked beforehand, wanted to try something different.
We're trying different things out here, seeing what sticks, like spaghetti,
Exactly. We haven't heard back from the rest of the Dork Shared Universe how they feel about the 7 Deadly Sins of Cinema, but this is also a really complex movie, and we're trying to help you guys understand it if you haven't seen it yet. So just mixing it up, and also for my partner on the Change My Mind channel over on TLDR Doc, this is how you do spoiler free shit. I don't know if you listened to, I think it was TLDR4, but he spoiled a certain part of a book that I talked about in the first episode of TLDR. He had read it and he got all excited, and I was like, shh. I cut it out in the audio version, but for those who watched us on his Twitch stream,
that's funny.
He may have spoiled something, but this is how it's done. Do you have anything else before we get into spoilers?
Well, would you want to rank your top 5 Christopher Nolan films?
Sure. All right. So, like I said, I haven't seen Inception, but I'm sure Inception would be in here if that was the case. I'm going to go Dark Knight as my number 1. Then I'm going to put Prestige. Then I would say The Dark Knight Rises. I know a lot of people have issues with it, but for the age I was at when I saw it, I still enjoyed it. Yes, there are some issues. I understand, but it's a fun movie, and I really like Tom Hardy's Bane in it. Then I'm going to go Tenet, and then I'm going to go Batman Begins, because I haven't seen Interstellar, I haven't seen Dunkirk, and I haven't seen Inception. These are all the Christopher Nolan movies I've seen, Wes. So where are your top 5?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would pick Memento as up there. I think that was one of his first big hit. I haven't seen that one, and I think I fell asleep through Dunkirk, which is probably more of a me problem than
Maybe.
Christopher Nolan. I'm not a big war person, like film person. I feel like they're all kind of very similar. And
I got one that's different for you. As a real quick aside, have you 1917? Have you seen that yet?
Oh no, but I've heard great things. That takes place in like 90 minutes, right? It's like real time almost.
Yeah, it's one camera the entire time. They no jump cuts or anything like that. They're following them the entire time. It is insane. It is a totally different experience. I wish I saw it in the theater, but even watching it, at home, my old man wanted to see it so bad. He said, "We got to watch it." I'm like, fine, whatever. Outstanding. Awesome movie. I recommend that to anybody who likes action. Absolutely 1,000%. But anyways, back to your list.
Yeah, so I will go. So I haven't seen Dunkirk, and I wasn't a big fan of Interstellar. I thought that was an enjoyable movie, but I'll never go back and watch that again. Way too long of a movie, and it's just a little too serious for me. But The Prestige, I love The Prestige. Going back again, one of those movies you go back and kind of find new things about. Interstellar's probably also that, but I don't know. With the physics and things and space, it just makes it a little bit more convoluted to me. Number 2, I'll go with The Dark Knight. Much for the same reasons, as we discussed on the DC Rewatch Vault, the greatest comic book superhero movie of all time, in my opinion. Number 3, I'll go Inception. Number 4, I'll go Tenet. And then number 5, I'll put The Dark Knight Rises on here over Batman Begins, just because I'm a big Bale fan. I love Tom Hardy in this.
Yeah, for some reason, time has not been kind to that movie, at least to people who cared about that movie before. Because I remember when that came out, it seemed like everybody loved that movie. Not as much as The Dark Knight, but it was, everybody loves Bane. Everybody loves to do a Bane voice. But now people like to shit on it that are, huge comic book movie fans. I never quite understood that. But all right, I think that's a solid list, Wes, and I'm sure I would not have Batman Begins on my list if I had seen Inception before, but sadly I have not seen it yet.
Yeah,
and it's on Netflix still, right? So I'll have to go see it.
I think so. I think it should still be on there. Yeah.
Yes, it's time for us to get into spoilers, which means it is time for me to break out the scotch because I'm going to need that to get through this shit. This segment of the show is brought to you by Glen Moray. It's the only thing that I drink. That's not true, but who cares?
Now, where do you buy? Is this like knockoff Glenfiddich?
I don't know. It was a gift. I don't know. I think my uncle, who was a big Scotch guy, gave me this out of his own like personal collection. He always gives me stuff. I think it was so. Yeah,
I haven't heard of it before, and it just sounds very similar.
Yeah, everybody who makes Scotch. It's mandatory that your first name is Glenn.
Right, apparently, yeah.
Yes, Glenn Ordway. He can go and do that too.
Single malt. Blended
single malt Scotch whiskey.
Okay.
Spy, S-P-E-Y, so maybe Speyside.
What's
I
the
don't
year?
know. Elgin Heritage, and it is aged 12 years.
Oh, 12. Okay, that's good stuff then. All right, 12
Yeah.
years is a good
Yep,
start. I
it
like that.
is now empty, and I've enjoyed every single bit of it, and I'm gonna need everything to get through this shit because, holy crap, Wes! My God, this movie is so confusing. And actually, speaking of being inebriated, did you go and see this movie?
Well, yeah, let's discuss our theater experience because one, this is my first theater experience in 6 months, right? So
this
I
is
think
true.
So I saw this on a Friday evening while my lovely wife was bringing home the bacon. She was working.
Nice.
So I had a little free time with me. So I went to Flagship Cinemas, which is a rare thing. I think that's the only flagship cinema left in Massachusetts is in Wareham.
I know that.
But yeah, so it's nice. So I probably had 8 people in the room in the theater with me, and 6 of them, like I was the first person to buy my tickets. Like I had the whole theater available at the time that I purchased them.
Okay.
And the whole back row was open, but yet when I get to my seat, there's 2 other couples sitting out, further down, well socially distanced and separated from me and everything, but still on the back row. And I was kind of pissed about that. Like we have the whole fucking theater to ourselves, and 80% of the people in the theater are sitting in the back row. So like I thought it would have been a bad move. Like again, I like to pregame for this. Like to come in with an altered state of mind, if you will. There's a Verilife shop right down the street from this. So, you go, you pick up your disposables, your gummies, your edibles, your tinctures, whatever you want, as long as you're 21 plus.
Bring things.
And then you can go and do, whatever your heart desires. So, I was ready to go in there, but I was already a little self-conscious, maybe second-guessing myself too much. So I thought if I went to my seat and then went to go to another seat, it would be sending a wrong message to everyone else. Like, you guys, I can't be near you. Like, you're disgusting. You're sick people. I can't be next to you.
That would have.
I just sat there. And again, there was like 3 or 4 seats separating us. So it wasn't like.
So it's more of a principle thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you are nothing else, you are a man of principle. So I can understand and respect that. Absolutely. I am stunned. I know you almost always go in with a slightly altered state of mind, and I hope you didn't go in too altered on this one.
No, I tempered myself. I knew what was going to happen. I knew I had to pay attention. I had to keep my wits about me. But I did not buy any. All I bought was a soda. Of course, they didn't have fountain sodas available. They had the 20-ounce screw tops. So I got a Pepsi. But I got Haribo sour gummy bears, Haribo, however you pronounce those. You know what I'm talking about?
They're part of I think they are considered a goat candy by PCP when they did that episode. You guys can go back and check that.
These were the sour ones, though, a little different. So they were nice, a little chewer than what I liked, but I had this sweatshirt on and I stuck it. I don't know if this is the move for you, but in the hood.
You stuck the gummies in the hood?
I put the gummies in the hood when I went to go pay. So, I went to like Cumbies to go buy these. And then I also bought Chex Mix, and I put them both in my hood. And then when I went to go paid, I was free. So, like a lot of people want to put them in their pockets or like your pouch in your hoodie or something, but it's too fat. Like it's gonna be too obvious, right?
Right.
Your hood, who's gonna know?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a deep ass hood if you're gonna do that.
Well, I mean, it worked out fine.
Yeah, you got a pretty deep hood.
It's a hood. It's a hood to cover. If it covers my big ass head, like it can hold like a bag of gummy worms.
Your head is very proportionate for your body, and it is not big. I don't know who's been bullying you, Wes, but
7 3/8, man. That's a decent sized head, if you ask me.
That is actually a decent sized head. But if it was, I was 7. I think I'm 7.5, 7 5/8. So
okay.
I have, but anyways, either way. So it was my second trip to the theaters. I have been to the theater both times for the 2 movies we have reviewed. I am the bravest podcaster in the hashtag Dork Shared Universe. Some are saying, not necessarily me, but I'm not going to argue with them on this. And I've gone to the Fall River Cinema both times because it's a 10-minute drive down the road from me, much closer than Dartmouth or Swansea. And my only thing is, there are probably in this particular cinema or theater in the cinema, you're allowed to see 87 people, but then they cut it down for social distancing and everything. But it's only like 15, and there are rows that are wide open, completely empty. I don't quite understand that. So I was originally going to have to sit next to a couple with the way the seating was because I went by myself like you did. I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm just sitting in the row in front where nobody bought tickets or at all. I'm not going to sit right next to somebody. It's just A, that's a problem because of the social distancing, and B, I wouldn't do that anyways if I could help it. So it was annoying. But other than that, I was fine. And I did sneak stuff into. I had Quest bars, Quest cookies, and basically gluten-free Ritz peanut butter crackers, which are friggin' outstanding. I just put them all in my pocket. That's it. I didn't get fancy like you. Nobody said anything.
Even when you're eating junk food, you're eating healthy with the Quest
Sometimes,
bars?
dude, the cookies are outstanding. I have shit that would rock your world. Trust me. And you wouldn't even think, oh, this is healthy. I could. Even Mac would like it. Who's like Mac's the biggest food snob, or is it Shime? I'm not certain.
Well, it's a good question. So I think that probably depends. I think Mac is a picky eater. For it sounds like it's like meat on the bone, for Christ's sake. So I'm not sure if he has the refined palate that you'd be looking for.
No,
but he's a fat guy, so who knows?
I like a little meat on my bone, if you know what I'm saying. But anyways, let's get to the movie. I think it's time to talk about.
Enough about Mac's weight here, right? Let's get into the spoilers. That's not a spoiler if anyone has seen Mac. I'm sorry, that was unnecessarily rude. I wish you could take that back, but it's live, so we'll deal with it. Okay,
He's fine.
Thick skin, right? As we just said. Spoiler. So now we're doing a spoiler-filled review synopsis here, right? So a CIA agent who is recruited to a mysterious organization called Tenet. He learns that a war is being waged from the future where technology has been inverted that allows objects and people to, quote, invert, or reversing the flow of their entropy so that they travel backwards in time instead of forwards. Tenet was also created in the future, and its goal is to stop the antagonists from setting off a doomsday weapon that will wipe out both the past and the present.
Yes.
And I think that's a very succinct way of describing the movie. Like, I went through and looked that was descriptive, but not totally giving things away.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a perfect semi-spoiler filled synopsis.
Yes. Yeah, definitely not the one we want to use for the spoiler-free segment of the show, but it's still I'm still listening like, yeah, it explains it, but it's still like it's still a little more confusing than that shit. But I guess if you're going to put it like in a tight little package, that's a pretty good job, I would say there. But,
right.
So you said you were going to try and explain entropy and inversion to us. You found some definitions, of course, putting on your internet sleuth hat as you do so well all the time. Do you want to start with entropy or inversion, or does it make a difference?
Yeah. So okay. So
or by starting with entropy, are you actually starting with inversion because of?
Oh, don't even throw that in there. Now you're just throwing a whole monkey into the wrench there.
Have we already reviewed this movie?
Yeah, in theory we have, but you have to feel it first. So just feel it.
Exactly. Don't think about it. Just feel it.
Exactly.
Which makes me really feel unsettled about this drinking this scotch right now.
Right. Or is it drinking you? Think about that.
Oh God.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm gonna throw up. All right. Anyways,
that was what was going through my mind when I was watching Tenet. That's the state of mind that I was in. How's that? So what is entropy? Think of an egg dropping on the ground. So long as time is moving forward, that egg can shatter or become more disordered, right? All of its particles can become disordered. But it will never reform as a whole egg, becoming less disordered. The flow the flow of entropy is the only thing preventing this from happening, since all other relevant laws of physics are symmetrical. Anything that can happen forwards can also happen backwards, but except for entropy. Everything is always flowing forward. So that's what you think of. So what is inversion?
Okay.
You don't see eggs reforming on the ground and jumping back up. But taken to a logical conclusion, physically speaking, that would be allowed by the laws of physics. So again, this is like, it's like less than a 1% chance of happening, but it's not also 0%. So that's why it's like rooted in real science, right?
So what's the point of a law then? It's not a law, it's a theory then. If it's a law, that's bullshit. Okay, go ahead, continue. It's not you questioning, it's a law of physics.
Well, it's the law of physics, but it's the theory of entropy.
Got it.
Right?
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So if you could invert the flow of entropy for an egg, the egg would not literally start traveling backwards in time. But entropy and time are so strongly linked. This look familiar?
Yep.
You hear this in the movie like 3 or 4 times.
Sorry, I'm reading along as you're explaining this because it's confusing as shit.
Okay. So, but if entropy and time are so strongly linked that if people saw a smashed egg reassemble itself, jump off the ground and return to the kitchen counter, it would look like time was moving backwards for the egg. So that's the theory, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, that is I suggest everybody rewind back to the beginning where it was, or maybe you already have rewound back to the beginning. Maybe you're going forward now, but I suggest re-listening to entropy and inversion, Wes's definitions of it, because it does help, but it's still a lot. The whole concept is confusing, but it does. I get now because that was a question for me coming into this. Where the hell did Nolan come up with this idea? How did he? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. How I get creative minds can wander off into weird places. Don't get me wrong, but this is just so bizarre. And now we know it's not necessarily. There's creativity behind it, but there's also research done behind it, and basically just asking why not, or that's
not exactly junk science, right? It's rooted in some sort of soundness.
Mm-hmm. It's not just fantasy land.
Right. Okay. So what did you like about this movie? Now that we have some definitions, a little bit of a foundation laid.
Okay. I like the action. The action's outstanding. I think the score you brought up it was outstanding as well.
Mm-hmm.
The acting was very well done. Just in general, how chaotic this movie is. It made it just an intense wild ride. Is what you want in an action movie. And now we've talked before about how, like with the Joker, you need to have a comic book behind certain movies or a comic book brand, whatever, behind movies to have people want to go see it. You don't have that here. I don't know if there was a book. I don't think there was, but you don't have that here. And it's still very compelling, and I think it was advertised well and everything. I just think not having that, this movie is just. I thought that was really well done, considering that. And it's not necessarily important for me, but in this age, I do like to see those characters. I do like to see, a comic book behind movies. But most importantly, where you and I both talked about how confusing this is. At the same time, though, where you're a little bit, in a different state of mind than I am coming into this movie, you are still able to walk out of it and have an idea of what the hell just happened. And I think they do a good job of kind of hitting you over the head with what is going on over and over, but in different ways to the point where it doesn't feel repetitive. While at the same time, you are seeing some of the same shit happen over and over throughout the course of the movie. So there's a lot to like with this.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on what you were saying, I love the acting. I thought the performances were great. I think John David Washington is a fantastic leading man.
Well done.
Going back to the Black Klansman, I loved him in the Black Klansman. He was in some other movies right now that I'm kind of blanking on, but I've always come away. I think he does a very good job as a leading role. He just kind of suits him well, and sometimes as a fairly young actor, fairly young as far as his career goes to the masses,
right?
I think he's done a really good job of ascending. Of course, he has Denzel to kind of lean on and learn from to a strong degree. But
did you feel a little Denzel at moments in this movie?
Kind of. I think he does a good job of being his own person. He definitely has a different speaking voice. And just a different cadence to him.
Different way he carries himself, everything. But there were moments of Denzel.
You can definitely see like the facial mannerisms and stuff like that. That's definitely Denzel. But Robert Pattinson, I thought was great too.
Bravo.
And Elizabeth Debicki, I thought was nice. I loved Kenneth Branagh. I was just blown away by his performance. And once I realized it was him, like he looked like a real Russian to me. He came off as like a real angry Russian mobster. And again, I think knowing that this movie was going to require a lot of close attention to it, I think coming into that, knowing that also was beneficial because it kept me invested in parts that I probably would have normally maybe checked out on or not have been like paying as close attention to because I knew how confusing of a movie this was going to be. So I liked how like how engaged I was throughout all of this.
Yeah, the 2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours exactly.
That is, I mean, look, we love movies, we love shows, we love all this entertainment, but 2.5 hours. As much as a kid, I love Lord of the Rings; those were long. That is not easy to do necessarily, but I still would have been engaged in this. But there weren't a lot of lulls. The lulls were very brief, I think, in this movie, if there were any.
Yeah, and I was expecting this movie to kind of play out more like a palindrome. Like I thought that was going to be more of a play there, that you would have the movie kind of start and end in the same way, and to a degree, it kind of does. But what I really loved how that the Tenet palindrome kind of thing comes into play is that you see them revisit scenes and play out in reverse, in inverted, that you had already seen happen forward, which I thought was awesome. So again, that goes back to explaining certain things. You know, a big spoiler here is that, you know, John David Washington, the protagonist, is fighting against himself more often than not. You know, just a past version, a different version of himself. And I think that's fantastic. And that's how you find out later on why the protagonist knows Neil or Robert Pattinson to begin with.
Right.
Like, they don't really explain that. Like, you just think like they're teammates or, you know, partners from an old job or something like that. That was like he just calls them up on the phone. You know,
well, yeah, no, it was like I thought the first guy who we see who brings in John David Washington into Tenet, I thought he set him up with it. Where it looks like John David Washington is really the guy who's pretty much orchestrating the entire thing.
And of course he is.
Yeah, he is. So it's such they did a really good job of bringing that all together. And you know, you're right. He did an outstanding job. Robert Pattinson's. I don't like. I look. John David Washington put forth the best performance of the entire movie, but Robert Pattinson's was a little bit important to me for a different reason. Because when we talk about Batman, he's not. I don't expect him to be like this in Batman. But where everybody says, "Oh, you know, he's a Twilight guy and everything," and you get worried about that. If you haven't seen a ton of Pattinson outside of Twilight, because I haven't seen a ton of Pattinson. Period. It's Cedric Diggory, and I think I saw the first Twilight movie because I was dating a girl at the time. That's pretty much it. So to see him in this role where it's very different than both of those movies, one would think, he's a different character, and now I know, like, all right, the range is there a little more, like a Bale, like a Gyllenhaal.
That could be like a Bruce Wayne portrayal, though, because he doesn't really speak a whole lot. You know, he's very quiet. He's kind of like, I don't want to say aloof, but like you don't really get a whole lot of Neil all the time.
Right, but when he talks,
and he's
there's a little
like higher class. And he has that kind of like sophistication about him that comes with Bruce Wayne.
There's a kookiness to him though that you don't see with Bruce Wayne. So, but you're right. It's only a couple steps maybe to the right or left, and then you might have Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, yeah, so I agree.
That was comforting. But yeah, him and John David Washington and Branagh too. But those two guys did an outstanding job. Worked very well off of each other, I think, throughout all of this.
Yes, and just to wrap up on some things that I liked about it, I liked the highfalutin lifestyle of this. You know, it caused the protagonist and Neil to be rubbing shoulders with some very high-profile people. A lot of old money. You see him going out on the boats, the cigarette boats, and you see him driving, which is from the trailer. But you also have him on those crazy, you know, like crazy extreme sailboats. I forget the name of them, Cameroons or something like that, or Tamarins. I forget what they're called. But he's doing that, and he's got all the suits, the nice clothes, and like when he goes to see Michael Caine, right? Like Michael Caine has a cameo who has appeared in every single one of Christopher Nolan's films. That's a fact.
Michael Caine.
Or Michael Caine. You know, at the very end, they say, well, if you're going to be passing off as a high class person, you can't be wearing Brooks Brothers.
Yes.
He's like, go take my black card and go get a tailored suit somewhere. And I thought that was so great because a billionaire is going to know a Brooks Brothers suit and one that's like custom. You know what I mean?
So is this the
you and I wouldn't?
Is this the Caine-verse? Is that what Christopher
Nolan-verse?
Is the Nolan-verse or is it the
Nolan-verse with Michael Caine as the connective tissue?
Gotcha. Okay. So is he like Uatu, one of the Watchers?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I like that actually. Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. So
he aged really quick too, by the way.
So are we going to see some like? Are we going to see Christian? Oh, but see, then the Bale's involvement in all this throws us off though, because you have the Prestige and you have Bruce Wayne. Although, you know, a case could be made for all of that. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's another
Different
story
time for a different day. Yeah.
We need to do an episode on that where we figure out, and we should do this with some other people in the DSG, where we figure out other like movies that could actually fit into other universe, like major universes that don't necessarily belong to
like
one.
I pick a name out of a hat, you pick a name out of a hat, and be like, bam, you have to connect those two movies. How do they go?
Yeah, exactly. Or connect this to, take this movie and then connect it to one of the major universes that we've seen in franchises. Yeah, we got to do that at some point, and then we got to figure out who the smarter members of the hashtag Dork Shared Universe are, and then try and get them involved. That's going to be the toughest part in all this. But anyways,
need a Wonderlic test.
Yeah, well, I think Davey has said he did really well on that. But either way, what did you not like about this movie, Wes?
How confusing it was. I wish it was a little bit easier. But again, that's also what I liked about it too. So there's some questions. These are some like issues that I had with the movie. Okay, so I was wondering why. Okay, so just to kind of put it up for people, if you're interested and haven't seen this movie but want to know about the spoilers, like John David Washington, the protagonist, is a CIA agent who's like essentially going into the Kiev Opera to go rescue someone or something, right? As I forget what the point is. Then they end up getting ambushed by Kenneth Branagh's group, Satyrs there, who is also traveling back in time. And then he ends up getting captured and is getting tortured by some Russian guys who aren't related to Branagh. He's getting his teeth pulled out. He sees a cyanide capsule. He goes for it. And then he wakes up, and the whole thing was just a test, just to see if he would ever give up the major secrets, which of course he didn't. And then, the CIA's guy's like, I'm just going to give you this word Tenet to go find.
But here's the thing. It probably wasn't a test, as we've gone and learned. It's not. Right. It wasn't a test because he's the one that orchestrates the entire thing. So he probably told this guy, do this, have me, I will take it, and we're good. He said it's a test at the time, but in reality, it wasn't a test.
Well, so I think it was a test for that version of the protagonist, much like Neil had already had a relationship with the protagonist years in advance prior to this version that we saw, knowing his drink order and different things like that, and like wouldn't be able to tell him that he already met in their first step of their mission or whatever, because he had to find out on his own. And what would that do? What ripple would that have caused if he had already known his own future or known that he was a part of it? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. That's why he says it's a test.
So it is kind of a test.
I don't think it is a test. I think I'm the protagonist, because again, that's John David Washington's name. He doesn't have a name in this. The protagonist knows he's going to do that. He's not going to hesitate. You just got to tell him it's a test, though. It's not actually a test. He lied.
So this is my confusion, right?
This is why this is such a confusing movie, though.
Yeah. So as we're talking about this now, right? So the protagonist in the future had already gone through that moment, right?
Right.
So the first time it had to be a test.
No.
So because
future remember how, so he goes and gets Neil in the past. Future protagonist goes back in time, and whoever this guy is that told him it's a test, I don't remember that character's name, but he would have right. Well, he would have recruited him or dealt with the people that recruited him and said, all right, this is where I get involved. This is how you're going to do it. And I'm sure the guy who gave him the what's that called? The capsule?
Cyanide capsule.
Cyanide capsule. Thank you. He was probably in on it too, and he probably knew you have to slip him this. And then they say it's a test, but they can't tell him in truth it wasn't a test. This is how you get started. We knew you were going to do this.
When we talk it out, like it makes so much sense to me when I'm watching it, and like so when it's explained to me. But now I'm like, wait, but which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like that's kind of what this question, this movie ultimately comes down to.
So actually, all right. So we've talked real quick, just so I can say the one thing I didn't like about this movie. The love interest, as much as it became an important part in all this, is not so much the Branagh and I forget the female actress,
Elizabeth Debicki.
Elizabeth Debicki, who plays Kat. Her role in this, I got her relationship with Branagh. That's fine. I don't mind that, but I don't like John David Washington necessarily. developing feelings for her. Like if it ends there,
Well,
I'm cool.
I don't think he develops feelings for her. I think he
Okay.
just feels like a sense of protection.
Okay, because just honest to God, Wes, I understand a lot of people care about having love interests in movies, but for me, I just don't need that to be the motivating factor all the time.
No,
That's something that just we see over and over and over again.
I
But
agree with you. I thought this was nice though because you get the idea that Kenneth Branagh, who is on paper the rest of the world just an arms dealer, but he is really working with the future terrorist to be like their point person in the past to make sure all this is going. So he's getting rich off rich off rich off rich.
Yep.
But he if he doesn't have anything, he turns out to be a very selfish person. That's the point that I'm trying to make, right?
Yeah.
In everything that he does. And he says to Kat at one point, if I can't have you, then no one will. So it gives you that idea of how jealous he is and how, how untrustworthy he is to everyone. And of course, that's all set up because she tried selling him a fake, painting years ago. And that's the whole reason why, he has that blackmail thing going on.
She did not do it on purpose. She said it. She fucked up. He bought it knowing having an idea that she fucked up, and now he has it as blackmail over her. But speaking of their relationship, though, I love the little tie-in at the end because their relationship, their issues, like that's fine with me. It was just having the main character fall in love, but platonic, fine, whatever. But either way, it's not a huge thing. It's just I'm nitpicking at this point.
Yeah.
I do like how at the end when she said she saw one of his girls diving off the boat with freedom, it ended up being her.
Right.
I saw it fairly early in the course of it, like as she was going to go after Branagh, but it was just that to me that was very well done. I didn't see that coming, a tiny thing. But I want to talk about.
Let's just get his, what he's doing. So he's trying to collect this algorithm, which is supposed to be plutonium, but it's not. And it's if you get these, it's actually a lot like Horcruxes in Harry Potter. If you get them all together, it becomes like one super weapon, pretty much.
That was one of my problems with this movie.
Yeah. So it's I mean, you have to have kind of like a MacGuffin to keep the storyline going along, but essentially the idea is that Kenneth Branagh wants to go back in time to his most happiest time because he has pancreatic cancer, so he's gonna die. So he wants to go back to his happiest time to die, and much like he said about his wife, Kat, if I can't have you, then no one will. He feels the same way about the Earth. If I can't live on Earth, no one will. So he wants to destroy the Earth.
Right.
He's getting paid off by the future terrorist, I guess, because they are mad at the present people for creating climate change and ruining the world.
Right. Exactly. So then kill the world because that makes a ton of sense because somehow you'll still somehow you're still going to exist. But I think for me, I actually appreciate how he's not his own hero in this story. He kind of sees himself as like the most important person in the world, fine, but he is an asshole. Like he's not like Thanos where people say, oh, maybe Thanos is right. No, he's just a friggin' asshole. He is an absolute villain. And we're starting to get more of the, well, I can kind of see how this villain isn't entirely a villain. No, sometimes we need an actual straight up villain. So thank you for that.
Right. And when he says, I'm going to slit your throat open and then shove your balls in it, he's like, you ever seen a man try to grab their balls out of their throat to cut themselves off and breathe? Or like whatever he says, like that's a very intimidating line. Yep. And he's just so casually. The guy sits down at dinner, like he's sitting around with a group of people and he's just casually talking about shoving balls in someone's air pipe. I'm not even talking about like down the throat, like cut it open and then shove them in there. Like that's tough, man.
Him and John David Washington just like a champ. Okay, fine, whatever. He gets his way out of it.
You get this line in the trailer too, but it's like, how would you like to end your life? And he's like long or something like that, or peaceful. Like how would you like to die peacefully? Something like that. And it's like such a perfect like quippy one-liner thing that that really speaks to me like more. I think that always catches my eye. A good one-liner, that's going to file that one back there and save it.
Right, of course. Now, the reason I wanted to get the things we didn't like out of the way is because I want to talk about trying to make sense of what the whole inversion entropy thing is that we see in it. Like you gave the definition, but trying to make sense of what we saw. So at the beginning, where the scientist shows us the bullet and everything, that at first I was totally in the okay, just accept what it is and move on mode. And throughout a chunk of the movie, that's how I'm looking at things. But then, as we go along and start to see what Branagh did, where he shot his wife in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That added a whole nother layer to it, because now we're seeing this machine that then puts
The
you in
turnstile. Yep.
the turnstile that is basically it's like a time machine in a sense, and that's what transports you over to the other side. Okay, cool. To me, that made sense for the most part. After that, the whole ending was a little bit confusing. I loved the ending.
See,
A
I was
little,
confused with the bullet thing, because the idea of what the protagonist was saying, that like if someone gets shot with an inverted bullet and then you move them to the inversion level, it's no longer an inverted bullet. It's just a bullet in the inversion level. So like the inversion bullet in forward time was supposed to be more lethal than a normal bullet for whatever reason.
okay.
But so like that was kind of
Uh-huh.
confusing to me. So it's like that was kind of like, you know, the
That was
protagonist's fix or something, like, so that it got a little convoluted there for me, but like for the story purposes, I understood it.
there were definitely still components at the end of it that, like I said, rattled me. But seeing the machine and just be like, this brings you over to the other side. Boom, turnstile brings you over to the other side. That was simple, and
Yeah.
that was the most important thing for me to
Yep.
walk out of the theater saying, okay, I kind of understand it a little bit. I'm not just accepting it. I
Right.
get a little bit of an idea. Like, this brings you over to the other side, and this is where everything just starts going backwards. Everything's
Yeah,
just
you
going
almost
crazy.
have like it's like a two-way mirror, you know, like
Hmm.
you would, right? So like the idea was like Kenneth Branagh was in the inversion speaking backwards, but had like a walkie-talkie that was on the other side. And what he would do is what Aaron Taylor Johnson described, was that he would send half his troops into the inversion period at the same time that he would send someone at the forward period, and carry out the mission from both ends till they reach the middle, sort of
Right.
thing.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting. So he was able to kind of get those answers out, and to be able to have that scene and be able to see that in real time and see it kind of like play out when inverted one goes into the forward time and the forward one goes into the inverted time. You kind of see everything like play out.
Yep.
I needed that visually, almost as like
Yeah.
an explanation
It was
of
still
what's going on. I thought that was very helpful.
still rattling, but I very much enjoyed it. Like, visually too, it was crazy. And in Robert Pattinson, like, see, now John David Washington is the best part. Like, he's the in terms of acting performances, or what on screen presence, everything.
Yeah.
Best character throughout the entire movie until the final scene, where we're really close up on Pattinson as well, where we're seeing the two of them and what they're going through. Pattinson shit was absolutely crazy bananas, and I still don't entirely get, like, it was still a little bit confusing. We know what's going to happen to him, of course, off screen, but in general, everything he's going through was the craziest part about maybe the entire movie, and I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, and you get the good tie up at the end there when everything kind of resolves itself, and you see on Pattinson's backpack the red string with like the circle on it or something like that, which was what the other person who was captured at the very beginning of the movie from the failed coup, the failed mission, where the protagonist is getting his teeth ripped out, and the guy who seems to be dead, who's holding the cyanide capsule that John David Washington ends up eating, is actually Robert Pattinson, because he also sees that red string with the little loop on it hanging out of the backpack, which
Right.
again kind of ties up, and that kind of goes into my palindrome theory of the movie, that the movie kind of ends and starts where it began, in the same place. Not really, but kind of.
Yeah.
And then also you get, of course, the wife kills, Kat kills Kenneth Branagh there, and he's all good, but she gets a phone from future protagonists saying like, this is for, I forget, posterity purposes. If you ever feel anything, call. And we didn't really even talk about this, but one of the arms dealers that ends up linking the protagonist to Kenneth Branagh is this Middle Eastern couple who they think it's the husband who's the arms dealer, but it's really the wife who does a great job. I think she was great in this. I think her name was Dimple Kapadia. I think she's a Bollywood actress. Could be mistaken about that, but I think that's right.
Okay.
Anyway, she wants to tie up any loose ends, so she's going to go and kill Kat, and then by the end of the movie, John David Washington just walks in, kills the dude real quick, and like kills her. And like, again, that very smooth, like he always seems like in control, that he knows what he's doing. And I find that very appealing from a leading man.
In looking at, and real quick, just to follow up on your saying about her name, Dimple Kapadia, and the character's name is Priya. But
Yeah.
I think with the whole John David Washington thing, we brought up Denzel before. There were moments where it's like I'm clearly listening to Denzel's kid. It happened only a couple of times, but it really caught my attention when he did it. But by and large, when I look at him versus his father to me, he's a little bit wider, a little bit more dense in his build, and he has more of this old school, like he's not Arnold, but I mean like that kind of like I'm gonna pound your face in kind of guy, like a style action hero to him. Whereas we brought up 007 and Daniel Craig. John David Washington is somebody who, if they wanted to switch to if they wanted to keep doing 007, do it as a male. John David Washington is somebody who I could say, yes, that's a guy who could do it. He's got more of that slick, suave way about him.
Yeah, 100%. He's not British, but I 100% see what you're saying. He's got that kind of intellectual, that kind of intellectual, thinking side of him more than just brawn.
And his fighting style too is more quickness and efficiency than anything else. But yeah, it was that was the whole. Sorry to bring it back to the whole Priya part of all this. I think that it was just the way they tie up every little bit. They just did such a good job. There's still now again the Branagh's death was confusing for me at first, but like you said, he goes into Tenet and he wants to die on this happiest day or whatever. There were some moments again that are still confusing, but some of it you just gotta accept.
Yeah, and I think the big thing was like the idea was you couldn't touch yourself, your past self or your future self, or you couldn't come in contact with yourself.
Physical contact.
But since they're all like, decked out in SWAT gear, essentially,
it's fine.
They have gloves on. They don't see each other. So like, I think that's kind of a cheat, like a cheap way. But I get it. Like,
it's a little bit of a cheat.
I think the whole world would have like blown up.
Yes, that's what it sounded like.
The present time would have just like collapsed on itself. I think that's what happened. Like. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think you're right on that.
Also, what I thought was weird too, the point where he's inside the windmill, like in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, like when he finds out about Tenet.
Oh, gotcha.
Like right when the guy brings him back, and explains to him everything, and they just drop him off at the wind farm there in the middle of the ocean. Like I thought that was really weird. I was wondering, so I did some research on it. The reason he has to live in the windmill is to get his present self out of the way so his future self can operate freely during this part of the timeline. But they never explain it. So it just looks like he's like doing pull-ups the whole time.
Huh.
So you don't know how much time passes, right? You just know that a boat comes and he's like a couple days pass, he's asleep, he's doing pull-ups, he's looking at something else, he's getting back out of bed, then he hears something, so you don't really know how much time passes there. But I wonder like how far ahead this person had to get, the future him before all this happening, which is kind of interesting.
That's
again,
another thing that
really confuses me more when I find out more about this stuff.
That makes it even more confusing because if his future self's in control, why doesn't he know what the hell's going on?
How about when Kenneth Branagh on the second car chase scene, where he's in the silver car, not in the black car, right? So, but it's the still
where John David Washington's in the silver.
Yes, thank you. So that car crashes right at the end, right? Flips over, gets on the top. Kenneth Branagh comes out and realizes that it's inverted protagonist, so he lights the car on fire, and then all of a sudden you see the car burst in flames, and then the protagonist wakes up and he's got like a blanket around him because he's freezing cold.
It's crazy.
It works opposite because he's inverted, that the car won't explode, it's instead gonna freeze, and he just gets hyperthermia, which again like blows my mind, but I really love that touch. I thought that was really cool.
And they told you right beforehand, and it would just seem like they're just explaining things that are semi-relevant but not crazy relevant, and then we find out just how important it is in all of this. And it was like you were the first person to ever experience hypothermia from
an
a
explosion
gas
or
explode.
something.
Yeah, gasoline explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was so many things were well done in this. But when we talk about favorite scene for me personally, we already mentioned it beforehand, so I won't belabor the point. But the battle at the end, Pattinson's part and all this, for me, that was the favorite scene. I'm curious what yours was.
The favorite scene?
Yeah, yours.
Yeah, so I loved the reverse scene of Pattinson and the antagonist facing off against one another. Yeah, so they're both on opposite sides of the turnstile, and it's not the first time, but it's the second time when future protagonist is coming back, and it's the two of them going at one another. Not the
Oh,
first
so you mean
time.
the protagonist
Against the
versus?
protagonist, yeah, but it's when Neil's on the other side of the room. Remember when he's like, "Don't touch those," like when he's talking about like the bullet holes and everything.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
second time you see that scene.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
That was my favorite one. Yeah.
Got it. Yes.
And I also like the opening one from the Kiev Opera House, because they like plug in some sort of laughing gas or something that just knocks out immediately, just plugged into the HVAC, and everyone in the room goes down. And then you have like some guys who are like playing dead, who are just like trying to blend into the crowd. I like that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, as we talk more about this, one other thing that's kind of annoying me a little bit more, and it was already kind of factored into my score, but we talked off air about this. The idea that John David Washington's character doesn't have a name,
yeah,
that doesn't bug me. But the idea that it's the protagonist, that kind of agitates me a little bit. That's his name, because just I don't know.
Well, why? That's my question. If everyone else has a name.
Yeah, that's true too. Why? I mean, maybe it's just because it doesn't matter. Maybe it's because he's the guy who starts all of it. A part of me wonders if he ends up being the one that discovers this in his way. Because they said it's not created in the past, but it's found in the future. But what if it's in his future that actually happens in the past is when Tenet's discovered, and somehow John David Washington has to do with it, and he's not just the protagonist; he's also the antagonist in a way in all this. But see, again, I'm putting myself in a freaking pretzel right now.
Yeah, again, I think I think Christopher Nolan is a very smart guy who does things for reasons. I think you go through his catalog of movies, everything is done a certain way, right? So I think there has to be a reason why he's called the protagonist. I don't think that's just laziness or an oversight, or it doesn't matter. I think all this stuff kind of matters.
Yeah. Fair enough. And I think it has to, because there's no way that, especially how the money they're making right now in the middle of the pandemic, there's no way we don't get another movie out of this. We have.
I don't know. He's not a big sequel guy. I think this stands alone.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. This has the making of having 2-3 movies.
Outside of The Dark Knight, he hasn't done any sequels.
I mean, hey, you know what? We're coming out of it. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of different things are going on, changes. People trying new stuff. Why not? I'm just saying. I know it gets annoying, but I don't mind where we have a sequel and redos and all that. But Christopher Nolan, if you want to go and make a sequel, you don't need to go and make a trilogy necessarily, or this whole long franchise. But another movie, 2.5 hours, I'm in for it. If you do another 2.5 movie, I'm totally fine with it.
I think this goes from being very unique and individualized to being like corny if they do another one again. I think you're bordering on that line.
I want to know who's trying to kill the past.
Right.
That's all. I want to know a little bit more about that. And we would get some of this. We would get Pattinson back in this.
Is it Kylo Ren?
It could be Kylo Ren, but
kill
Kylo
the past.
Oh,
yeah, you got it.
Maybe. So obviously,
or is it Ryan Johnson? I don't know.
It's probably Ryan Johnson. So when we look at this movie, obviously there's a lot of questions, a lot of stuff we still don't understand, and I honestly, that's part of Christopher Nolan's brilliance, is he makes it where you still want to. There's so much more that you want to know after you see it, but you were still able to enjoy the movie, and I think that's a true sign of whether it's a book or show, movie, comic, whatever. I think you're doing a great job when you're answering some questions along the way, presenting questions, and then you leave some other questions unanswered, and there's room for the imagination, all that, as much as you're telling us the story in front of us. I have now we answered one of my questions, like what inspired this logic a little bit. This is some laws of physics have been questioned, blah, blah, blah. You've explained to me what inversion is and entropy, so I have an idea. But the other thing, this is a small one. I'm sure you have better questions than me, Wes. But how many cameras did it take to shoot these scenes?
Yeah, I wonder how that works to
Yeah,
do that, and just the amount of choreograph work
yeah,
that would take, on the part of the actors. Like that's really interesting to me too.
hmm
I would love to find that out.
yeah. It's because there's a lot going on, and I would imagine you don't want to you want to have it look exactly the same both times over, so you're not necessarily filming the first fight with John David Washington versus John David Washington. You're not having that. You're going to use that, but you probably want to use the same thing backwards if you can, and you can't
Right.
just simply rewind it. That's not what it is. So it is all shot in different angles. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
very.
that's tough. That's tough to kind of zero
I
down.
want to know. I want to know. Like I would love to see that special feature and explaining everything. But
Okay,
what
so
questions do you have?
again, this is kind of like the chicken or the egg type of thing.
hmm
If they're trying to stop the future from killing them in the past, doesn't the fact that they still exist mean they succeeded?
That's true. Yeah, I would say so.
So,
But you still have to go through those motions because remember
yeah,
right when Pattinson doesn't tell John David Washington that that's who he saw, that it was I saw you you exiting the inversion. If he told him that, then he probably would have acted differently.
right again. But maybe you just maybe you don't talk about it so much, but you just trust your gut.
Yeah.
You
I
don't
guess
really
so.
think of it. You don't really overthink it. You just kind of go like instincts
But
because
it's
you've
your
already
trust,
done it.
but you also still don't want to die necessarily if you can prevent it, right?
Yeah, but if in theory you've already done this, right?
Yeah, I
So
guess
then your
so.
body or your mind like should have an idea, like a little bit of muscle memory.
That is a mind fuck. That's a good call on your part. That's Jesus.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's a confusing one. This whole thing is confusing. I love it though. It was a really good movie.
because I think you hit the nail on the head. I want to be. I want my hand held enough so I can enjoy the movie and still know what's going on, but not enough where you spell everything out for me so that we can have these types of conversations
Yeah,
after the fact. Yeah.
exactly. Did you have any other questions coming out of this?
No, I think we pretty much
Okay.
mentioned everything. Yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I don't know about you. I feel
Uh,
like we did covered a
yeah,
lot here.
it's a confusing movie. I think everybody who sees it is going to be a little bit confused coming out of it. Hopefully, we helped you understand it a little bit, or at least made you feel like you're not alone in the confusion from this film. But I
Yes.
enjoyed it. I will definitely watch it over again. I don't know if it's going to help me understand it any better, but it's seeing a 2.5 hour movie, especially this day and age, seeing it as I know I put it at 87. That to me is still rewatchable, right? I mean, I know I kind of have jumped all over the place what means rewatchable to me, but this is like a really good movie, and it's something I could see myself at least watching one more time
Right.
because I'll appreciate it still. There's so much that goes on,
Hundred
but
percent.
but I guess that brings us to the quarantine corner. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, it sure does. Other than I had my best round of golf this summer, shot 93. That was, yeah, I believe a stroke better than the best round that I had this year. So
I
it's
thought you
nice.
had one. I think you shot a 92 or 91 at Rhode Island.
Oh no, that's right. Okay, yeah. So I was a little mistaken. The 92 is Sakonnet in Rhode Island, and then a 93 at Bay Point Club in Onset. So very nice. Course plays
Nice.
right to left, which kind of goes with my swing anyway as a lefty. So that was a lot of good one putts. We're going to be having a Dorkshire Gooniverse golf outing coming up in a couple weeks. So I know Mac, I know Doc are great golfers who will be partaking. So I just want to make sure I carry my weight a little bit.
Right, of course. Well, which I will not be doing that at all. I will be partaking in the.
At least
in
you
the
have a
event.
putter and a driver, which is more than we could say for our friend Goo.
Yes, this is true. So yes, we will have several members of the Dork Shirt Universe. We're hoping this is going to happen. It looks like it's going to. Wes is making sure everything gets taken care
It
of,
will
crossing
happen.
the T's and dotting the I's, and make sure you're paying. If you're not already, you're following or you've already liked the hashtag Dork Shared Gooniverse Facebook page because we will be posting stuff on there from everybody involved in the Gooniverse. So I'm glad to hear that you're riding high. I'm hoping that you don't get cold next weekend or even cold the weekend of the not tournament, but the event, I guess we'll call it.
No, I agree. I think I figured out some things on the tee today. So that's big. That's been struggling. My short game, my intermediate game has been good all season long, but my tee box has really hurt me.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. I can finally take these glasses off because I don't feel like I have to be down to business as much. I can relax.
there we go. Let it go. Let your hair down.
That was just so chaotic. All right, so for me, first of all, season 2 of The Boys is out this week, or it just came out this week. I am very excited to watch this. I caught up. I read the first omnibus of it. I believe there are 6 trades in the omnibus. I plan on reading it all. It's an outstanding book, and the show is awesome too. It's a little bit different, so you can. It won't ruin the book if you decide to go and watch it. I talked about the book a little bit, or quite a bit, on TLDR. I think it was issue 4 or 3. I can't remember. But more importantly, speaking of comics and everything, I was up in right near the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border this weekend before recording the show, and I was doing something with the lady friend. And,
lovely.
And she's
Apple
always like,
picking?
No. But not too far off. And
but you're not going to share? What'd you guys do?
There's a place called the Butterfly Place, and she loves butterflies.
Did you go catch butterflies?
We didn't catch them. We're just around looking at them and taking pictures and all that stuff.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yes. So, okay.
Was this your idea? Did you come up with this?
No, she's gone there multiple times. She's a big butterfly.
That's a pretty awesome move on your part. If you figured that out and was found some fucking butterfly aquarium or whatever.
No, but
that's smooth.
I appreciate that, but I'm not that good. I did surprise her a little bit later on in the day, and she was very happy about that. So I did a little bit, but I'm not that good. She's been there before. It was definitely her idea. But every time we go to one of her things, she's always like, "Oh, is there a comic book store you want to go to, or anything like that that's nearby?" Blah blah blah. And I do like doing that when I go to different parts of the state or New England or wherever else. I like to try and look at different small, local comic book shops and just see what's going on there. And there in Nashua, there is the comic book store, which has been around for almost 40 years. Okay. And I was like, all right, well, I didn't know that at the time. I found out when I bought stuff from the owner, but I went there. Wes, I love this place. They have so much shit that I've never seen at any other small comic book store. It's one of the bigger ones I've seen in, not Midtown Comics, but that's New York. That's different. Sure. But if you're ever in, near Nashua or whatever, I highly, highly recommend going to the comic book store. I got some cool stuff, and there's a lot of fun things to look at even if you're not looking to necessarily buy anything. But I could not recommend it more. I love the places I go to around here in southeastern Massachusetts, but if I lived up there, that would be my place 1,000%. It's one of the best. It's the best small comic book shop or local comic book shop I've ever seen in my life. Yes.
Okay, so this is nice. Now the comic book store is cool, but what I find more appreciative is that you were able to go up to New Hampshire and do something that the lady wanted to do that seemingly you have no interest in, and their favor ended up being returned by you also going to a place that you really enjoy, which I'm sure she has zero interest in.
Yeah, she doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of interest in. I like. Well, here's the thing.
That's balanced, though. That's good. That's good stuff.
She likes me doing stuff that I like to do, and I like it when she does stuff that she wants to do. It's a relationship, back and forth. And you know what? Honestly, I like it more when she does stuff that she likes. So we did something else that she liked afterwards. So
yeah. I mean, I feel like generally I just don't care. As if she's having a good time, I'm having a good time. That's usually
right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
If she's having a bad time, then nobody's having a good time.
That is very, very true. I could not agree with you more. That's not necessarily your wife specific. That's
just she. It's just she.
Yes. Yeah. I tend to agree. But the comic book store, the comic store in Nashua. If you're ever around Nashua, go there. If you love those kinds of things, highly recommend it.
Tax-free.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so Wes, obviously a lot of other stuff going on in the hashtag DorkShared Gooniverse this week. We talked about Mac and Goo, how they're talking about Inception. What's going on with hashtag Dork?
They were doing the first 3 episodes of The Boys, season 2.
That's right.
Now streaming on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Right, and I think the rest of the way it's 1 episode every Friday till the final 8. So I think they talked about maybe doing the first 3, and then they're going to do the last 8 the whole season at the end of it.
I don't know math, so whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Math's not our forte.
Yeah.
PCP, they are doing a review of season 1 and 2 of The Office. I don't know if you ever heard of that show, Wes.
Well, so I'm very interested. Continue.
So
you have my attention.
I said before that one of us is going to be involved in the PCP episode this week, along with another member of the hashtag Dork Shared Gooniverse. We're having some scheduling issues, but I am supposed to be one of those in on the episode, which of course you're the office guy.
Did the other person back out?
The other person has not backed out. It's just between my schedule and his.
I see.
It's the Celtics that are screwing shit up. If they could have got it done in 4 or 5 games, we wouldn't be having problems. But
yeah,
blame
Taco Fall for that.
Yeah, sure. We can go with that. But so we're doing season 1 and 2 of The Office, and you're the biggest Office guy I know, and this is the first time I've watched the show.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued to hear your take on this. I'm very excited to hear this episode because it can't be much worse than the Disney Song Draft, which was just banana land. It was bonkers. But a review of season 1, like, you have never watched this show, and I imagine up until you were asked to do this, and I imagine that everyone else has seen this show like 3 or 4 times. So I'm very eager to see your perspective on things.
It worked out really well because, again, the lady friend loves The Office, and
I would say most normal people like The Office.
Well, you've talked about it a ton. I know other members of the hashtag Dork Shared Gooniverse are fans of it. I don't think Rossi had watched it a ton. I don't like that I have anything in common with him, but there you go.
More than you probably want to admit.
Yeah. And then, of course, Lucy, too, who we both know from Furloughed Friends, she loves that show. So enough people have, basically it's lady friend. When she likes it, all right, fine, I'm going to give it a shot. And I'd wanted to watch it. Just as a small teaser, those 2 seasons I'm on to season 3 already. Those 2 seasons are so friggin' awkward. My God, Wes. I don't know.
The second one's not that bad. The second one's good.
Okay, well, I'll have some things to say when we do that.
Doesn't the second one have like the Dundies and the Chili's episode and stuff like that? Isn't that like the first episode of season 2?
I think the first season has the Dundies where he does.
Yeah. No, it's the second one. I think it's the first season of first episode of season 2.
I'll have to recheck some things. I got to do more research, make sure I have everything down right. But that first season was brutal, dude.
First one's tough, and before Michael Scott got hair plugs.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then of course TLDR is scheduled for Thursday at 8:00. Again, Doc's going to be doing an indie book. I'm not certain where I'm going yet. Maybe I'll try and get some Marvel, and we haven't done that in a while. Do you TBD for next week?
That's my favorite.
All right, so until then.
Yeah, same bad time, same bad place. You know it, baby.